we're already starting to think about the baby shower, because the gender reveal, lots of people knew that the gender got leaked before we were able to, and at first I didn't know the gender, but a couple of content creators kind of spoiled that for us. So yeah, I will say I did know the gender before the gender reveal, and so did Ken. We never said that we didn't know. We just didn't say that we did know. And we weren't gonna publicly come out and say that content creator so-and-so ruined that for us. So the gender reveal was for our family, because there were people in our family that don't get on the internet that they didn't know. So it was more for them than it was for us.
Hi friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Wednesday, August 21st, 2024. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. It's been a few days since we've talked about Gypsy over here on YouTube. I've spoken about her briefly over on my TikTok, but I've been kind of swamped with Jana Duggar and the Duggar wedding. But I was able to connect with some other people that, like me, had been connected to the family and put together some information, compare notes, and sort of compare what I was told by the family versus what they were told, and sort of try to dissect and compare and contrast what's going on here. And I've come to a good place here where I can share some information. So I've told you that there had been some suspicion about Gypsy being pregnant, and there was. Frankly, when you have someone that had faked not being able to walk, whether it was at the direction of her mom or not, for over a decade, you're going to be a little bit suspect of whether or not she's pregnant. I think the intrigue remains around when she's due. She's been showing fruit all over her Instagram and all over social media that confuses people. And the paternity question isn't going to be answered anytime soon, because they are going to wait until the baby is born due to the cost of the test. In order for her to have an amniocentesis, which actually would be going into the baby, into the uterus, to extract DNA from the baby, is more risky than having the baby be swabbed at birth, and it's more expensive. There's always risks when you talk about amnios, and so I don't frankly blame them for waiting on paternity, but it also will keep the extension of who's the daddy going until the baby's born. If you want my opinion, I don't know. I don't know. They're adamant that it's Ken's baby. Ryan's adamant that he'll take a paternity test, and that's about it, because he has to under the law. So Gypsy's divorce is going forward, and there were some questions recently about, can Gypsy face issues with her baby once the baby's born? Could she face ongoing problems with Child Protective Services? Could she become the target of an investigation by CPS, given what her crime is and what she was involved in, and the history of malingering and Munchausen's by proxy? These are really good questions, and I can tell you that when I spoke to Christy in July, she was very adamant that she was aware that CPS would be involved. Whether it's because Gypsy isn't capable of taking care of the child or not, it's more because of the reports that people will make online. I had suggested to them that Gypsy keep the entire pregnancy and baby offline to avoid any sort of calls from the internet, but they asserted that Gypsy would not talk about the baby, would not put the baby online, and only show the journey of the pregnancy. It's hard because Gypsy says one thing and does another, and then recently she posted going to get her ultrasound, which technically is showing the baby, even though it's still in her womb. Either way, questions about her capabilities of a mother have become very much the norm online. And so, again, when I spoke to Christy, she did express her fears about Gypsy's fitness as a parent and the history of Gypsy and Dee Dee with malingering and with Munchausen's, and even watching Gypsy's behavior from being released and how she's getting attention off of getting a nose job, getting new teeth. Now she's using her baby and her pregnancy for attention. And so will she continue this? Is there a possibility that she inherited what her mom did and how she became who she is? There's a new video out by Becca Scoops that I think does a decent job about describing, how Gypsy became who she did. I think my only criticism of Becca's new video is that there have been plenty of family members that have gone on the record and said that Dee Dee suffered from mental illness. And there have been plenty of people that have spoken openly about Dee Dee's issues with mental health, not just, Gypsy. And so I don't think Dee Dee's decline into malingering can be best described as her mom died, as Becca's video would point out. In my research and in my history of just following this case for years, is that Dee Dee had been a pathological liar even in her teens. Her friends have described her being a risk taker and a liar, and that didn't really change. And she definitely was a con artist, and it definitely got more severe once her mom passed away. But her mental health break wasn't necessarily her mom dying, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I do think that Gypsy reminisces her mother in many ways, in that she is a pathological liar and she is doing so much of this for attention. So one of the challenges for me coming out of this and sort of having to unwind and unravel what I've been told by the family versus what is the truth or what could be the truth, or unpacking the lies of Gypsy and trying to dismantle and really disconnect myself from that, has been talking to other people that have also had experiences with the family. And as I've connected with more people, what I've learned is that we were each being given pieces of stories, and not all of us were getting the whole picture. Not all of us were getting told everything. Some people were getting some tiny fragments, and then other people were just being flat out lied to. Many of us have realized that a lot of the stories about Gypsy and about the abuse with Dee Dee were very much exaggerated and fabricated by Gypsy. And we've also been able to connect about, what were your opinions, or what was your experience? How did the family express to you their thoughts about where Gypsy's at and what's going on with her? And so I told you several weeks ago that there had been a lot of fighting in the house. And one person I was able to speak to, and they don't want to be on record at all, they basically said that they reiterated to me a lot of what I had been hearing, right? That there was a lot of frustration going on in the house. One of the key issues that I experienced and they experienced when talking to Christy and other people in the family was that there's a division, a deep division in the family about what's best for Gypsy. So Christy is of the opinion that they need to go get their bag and they're all about the money, right? And they need to exploit this as much as possible, and Gypsy needs to ride her infamy, right? And cash in. But there's other people in the family, like her sister Mia, and even her dad a little bit, because Rod would prefer not to be on reality television. He would prefer not to do the show. He would prefer to just not do any of this. He doesn't have a lot of say because he's gone all the time working, and Christy's really the one driving the bus here. But there's a division sort of between Christy and Gypsy versus everyone else. But then there's also this division between Christy and Gypsy. So what I'll say is that, my experience was that Rod, Mia, and Dylan, the siblings, Mia and Dylan are her half siblings. They're Rod and Christy's children. None of them agree with all of this pomp and circumstance online. None of them agree with Gypsy doing a show. None of them think that this is for her best interest. Specifically, they believe she needs to get offline and to get into therapy. She really needs to get into therapy, not telehealth therapy, not once a week calling a telehealth therapist, but real therapy where they work with a trauma therapist and deal with personality disorders and doing a neuropsychologist and neuropsychological exam that would do a deep dive into her background and her mental health and wouldn't allow her the ability to manipulate. Because one of the problems with Gypsy is that she manipulates and changes her story and lies so much that if a therapist isn't going to hold her, isn't going to go deep enough and just going to go on the surface with her, she'll be able to, skate through therapy without learning anything. And, when I spoke to Gypsy about therapy, rather than dealing with what her mother did to her, or the malingering and having to fake being in a wheelchair and pretending that she had leukemia. I mean, those are not things that a mother should do to a child, regardless of what you think of Dee Dee. That doesn't mean she deserved to die. Those are the things that she should be working on, not discussing the internet bullies that she feels like are ruining her reputation. Okay. So that's what bothers Gypsy more these days, it seems, than what happened with her mom. Regardless, she really needs, in my opinion, intense, even inpatient therapy. And some of the family members agree with that. And so the division is like that the continued monetization and normalization of this and putting Gypsy out on a pedestal is no different than what Dee Dee did. But also what they're seeing is that because Gypsy hasn't gotten therapy and refuses to really get meaningful therapy, is that she's not just like her mom, Dee Dee, but maybe worse than Dee Dee. I think some of them had this romantic view that if they could pull Gypsy out from what her mom did and from the environment, and she could go to prison and take care of herself, that she would be able to unravel all of those years of programming, of being taught to lie, and the pathological lying and the lying for no reason, and the malingering and the grifting would get better, but it's not. It's not. So there's like a fraction right now where there's people in the family like Christy and some of her enablers that say Gypsy can't get a real job because Gypsy is literally too famous to work at Dollar General. That was a conversation I literally had with them. And then there's the other side of the family like Dylan, Rod, and Mia that are saying things like Gypsy needs to get offline, get a real job, and stop being like Dee Dee. Because if she continues down this route of being public, it's going to just be exactly what her mom did. It's going to be gaining attention for her pregnancy, for, if her child has a cold, if there's exaggerations of things that happen with content creators, like Gypsy accusing people falsely of ruining her gender reveal. I'll be clear, Gypsy knew what the sex of that baby was, or the gender was, the day that she found out. Same thing with the chromosome, like the panel. They found out the same day. It was a blood test. They all found out. They all knew in July that she was having a girl. Not one content creator that shared that she was having a girl before she did the gender reveal got that from anywhere else but Gypsy or Christy. They all knew. They were telling everyone. They have loose lips. They're feeding information directly to content creators to put out stuff to build intrigue and publicity for Gypsy. But then Gypsy can go on to her TikTok and play the victim and then get all kinds of gifts from her legion of fans that buy what she says hook, line, and sinker. And I had talked with them extensively about how these lives don't help her because she lies so much that it's easy to disprove. Like, she knew she was having a girl. She's lying that a content creator is the one that told her. She found out from the doctor. They all knew she was having a girl. They all knew that the gender reveal was only being done for show and content. It's literally on her PR schedule. Everything that she's putting out right now is written out by a lawyer. So Mike Stanfield is the one who apparently wrote out this PR list of everything she's supposed to do, okay? So Mike Stanfield, her defense attorney, is the one that's telling her to exploit her pregnancy. I want you to wrap your mind around the fact that her attorney that represented her as a victim, quote unquote victim of malingering and Munchausen's by proxy, now is teaching her and instructing her to malinger and exploit this pregnancy for views and for money so that she can become an influencer. It's gross. Anyway, back to the story. Because Gypsy refuses to get therapy that's meaningful, and because she's on this train of fame and is addicted to the attention and all of this and all of the accolades she's getting because of it, it's been harder and harder for anyone to wrangle her in and contain her in any way, even Christy. And so when I was talking to the friends about this and the former friends, what was their sticking point? They've all had different reasons for walking away from the family, but it all boils down to the fact that this family has been lying to everyone about everything. So people that have been standing behind them for a decade or for 10 years or 5 years or 7 years or whatever, they're exiting because they're lying to them about everything. Gypsy lies about everything. And Christy wants everyone to cover up Gypsy's lies, very much the same as what Dee Dee did. Everyone wants to cover Gypsy's lies and behavior so they can keep profiting. But that's what's fundamentally causing the problems in the family. Because there's actually family members that don't want her to be doing this, that want her to get offline, that want her to go private and go dark and to stop all of this and to stop exploiting this. And then it's all outweighed by the attention that Gypsy gets online and the money she's making. And then they say, well, she can't do anything else. So when it comes to now that we know the baby is happening because she put out the ultrasound to prove all the naysayers, right? And even some of the family members that doubted her, now that everyone knows she is pregnant, right? What's going to happen with this baby? Well, I've talked to numerous people about what Christy has told them and what I've been told. And almost all of us had the same opinion and were given the same information that literally everyone in the family is terrified for this baby. Terrified because Gypsy lacks skills to do anything. Gypsy's mom basically catered to her every whim. Gypsy was fed, cleaned, bathed, cooked for, she really only had to exist. That's all she had to do in her life was exist, okay? She doesn't know how to manage money. She doesn't know how to do the laundry. She doesn't know how to cook. I mean, she's learning, but she has no basis of understanding because everyone's always done everything for her, and that's what's continuing today. She's still not learning how to do the basic things in life. She's not learning life skills because she's too busy chasing fame and chasing the clout and the attention online, and too busy getting into fights with anyone that calls her out on her lies or pokes holes in her story. So because she's so incapable of even taking care of herself, and because her emotional regulation is awful. So when I was dealing with them, and I was talking to another longtime friend, the stories were the same, that Gypsy's emotional regulation is awful. Like she goes from 0 to 100 very fast. And she is impulsive and she flies off the handle. She's got anger issues. She cuts people off just like Dee Dee did. Like if you give her any negativity, she's done with you. And you can't do that when you have a kid, right? You can't do that if someone doesn't give you the response you want. And she can't manage her emotions well enough to deal with the lack of sleep, the lack of time for yourself, the lack of anything. Like the difference between her mom and her was that her mom, while she was catered to as a child, at least had a little bit more independence than Gypsy and had a little bit more of her own life, right? Gypsy never did. And so Gypsy doesn't have any skills and also has complete emotional issues like 0 to 100, rage, anger, and impulsivity, vendettas, and she gets angry and she takes things out on people and she doesn't let things go. And none of that is conducive with mothering. It's all very counterproductive to being a mother. And she also doesn't have the capacity to think about anyone but herself. And when you are only thinking about yourself all the time, it's hard to think about a child and be there for a child. And so there's lots of concerns from a lot of people from inside the family and outside the family that she will have issues with this child, and there will potentially be custody issues. Like, will CPS get involved? Probably. Could she possibly lose custody of this child based upon her own behavior? Probably. Is it possible that Christy and Ken want custody of the baby? As far as I know, Christy would prefer not to have custody of anything, but that's what I was told. But I mean, could Ken get custody of the baby? I don't know. I mean, Ken and Gypsy barely like each other. I mean, I was talking to someone yesterday and I said, were you told about all of their fights? And it was like, yes. Were you told that Ken and her are basically like tolerating each other and it's all for show? Yes. Have you been told about the fragility of this relationship and how he's in over his head now? Yes. So will Ken take the baby? I don't know. All we can hope is that this baby has the oversight it needs and that someone steps in, because I do fear for this baby, because as long as Gypsy remains untreated and outside of therapy and not taking care of herself and not making her mental health a priority and not learning the life skills that she needs, she can offer nothing to a child. Nothing. And there's also concerns because with Munchausen's by proxy and with the way that it's passed down, it can be inherited. And so can the malingering. So could she start exaggerating things with her child? She will, because she exaggerates things with herself. She claims having her feeding tube button changed is surgery. It's not. She claims she's had 30 surgeries. She hasn't. She claims that she had all kinds of unnecessary surgeries. She didn't. Oh, and that's my final take here today. Will have Gypsy's family started to wake up to the fact that she was lying about the extensiveness of what Dee Dee did to her? Yes, 100%. Some are more resistant to accepting that than others, but some are beginning to acknowledge that some of the tall tales that she has spun, like specifically getting chained to a bed, some family members don't believe that ever happened. That her grandfather did stuff to her. Family members don't believe that happened. Or that she didn't have illnesses and that she didn't need surgeries. Some believe she needed all of them. And some say there might be only one surgery, and that was having her salivary glands removed. That could possibly be the one that she didn't need, but everything else was needed. They're waking up and they're seeing that she is just like Dee Dee, but she's not just like Dee Dee. She's worse than Dee Dee. Worse. It's gotten worse. And she's a carrier of this chromosomal deletion, and her father refuses to get tested for it because he doesn't want to know that he has it and that his kids have it. But if her father's a carrier, any one of his kids can pass this down and have a 50% chance of having a child with it. So as far as I know, there hasn't been genetic counseling either. There's so many holes in this, and when you're chasing fame and you're chasing money, you're not chasing the interests of a child, and you're certainly not chasing the interests of the person. And the fact that Christy has been enabling Gypsy and all of it hasn't helped any of this, and it's creating divisions, it's creating fights, and it means that once this baby does come, things are going to get worse. And she obviously and very, very seriously could lose custody. I mean, I don't think it's even, to say it's not a possibility would be silly. It is a possibility. It's absolutely a possibility because she's not getting the help she needs. So that's what I've got for now. These are my thoughts, my opinions for your entertainment purposes only. You can do with this what you want. Make sure to check out Becca Scoop's newest video. What are your thoughts? Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Bye everyone.